So firstly, I'd just like to welcome all the government officials, the media, and our existing clients and new clients and people that are interested in this technology. It's been a very interesting and strange journey as we've moved through understanding how the coronavirus is going to affect the world and our health and our workplaces. And a lot of these things have stimulated a lot of different thought, and I guess a lot of ideas of what we can all do to keep our life as normal and productive as we can. So just moving on to give a little bit of a background. Let's get just to give you an idea, sorry, who I am. So I'm the Global CEO of iTWO Technologies and Phoenix PLM, and the Senior Vice President of RIB Global Alliance Partner Management across the world. And we've got quite a lot of staff. We're quite an influential group now as we've grown with RIB investing in us and allowing us to continue to grow globally. And now we've even seen the Schneider Group investing into the RIB Group. So we've become a very large, influential organisation, and I'm very proud and pleased that we've been able to react to issues like this and very quickly try to find solutions to help the industries that we work so closely on. Just moving on. So, iTWO Technologies has been around a long time, and we commenced off back in 1986 with our original companies, and we've grown. And of course, the team cover things like consulting, education, IT management. We develop solutions, we resell solutions, and we've been a part of the AEC industry for a very, very long time, and the manufacturing industry. I think that's enough of who we are, and let's have a look at what we're all here to see today and talk about iTWO Safe. So iTWO Safe, the story behind iTWO Safe. So in the last 5 or 6 months before the pandemic, I spent a lot of time traveling around the world and meeting companies and acquiring companies and building a very strong global team. And I was flying back from the US from a conference and landed back in Australia, and I wasn't feeling the best. So I self-isolated myself, of course, and then I was actually feeling fairly good a lot better in a couple of days. Then I got a phone call from the Queensland Health saying that somebody on the plane in reasonable proximity had tested positive, so I needed to officially isolate. So, and my wife, who was travelling with me, had to do the same. So through isolation then for 14 days was quite interesting, and having a lot of time on my own and thinking and working through things. And then Michael Robinson, who works for iTWO, talking to clients and coming up with some problems they thought they were going to face in construction sites. And then I had to go into hospital for a routine operation, and I spent a couple of days in hospital, and the nurses and the people on the front line, you could just see life was so difficult for them. And this smart distancing and keeping this space of 1.5 to 2 meters, it's not natural for people. It's not natural in our behaviours. And those frontline people, a lot of the time, have no choice but to breach that space. And sitting in hospital and just looking at all this going on, we reached out and we joined some great people all around the world, our organisation, and we started to work on how can we solve this problem? How can we make this better for people across the world? And how can we not only make it safer, but give our workplaces a chance to get back to work or stay in work? And even beyond we get through this pandemic, how do we keep something in place so in the future, if there is another spike or a breakout, and how do we manage so we don't have to shut down our complete sites? And and really got us thinking and really got us working. And it was from that and this great team of people and from idea right here in Australia and in Queensland came iTWO Safe. So just moving on now, you'll see that the whole idea around iTWO Safe was to have something that was simple and easy. So keeping it simple was very important to us. So we don't want something that takes over people's lives, and we've seen a lot on the news in the last day or two about apps for society and managing coronavirus and people putting their information in there. We're not concerned about that. What we're concerned about is when it comes to the workplace, how companies can provide the safest opportunity for people to continue to work, how can provide a safe workplace for our people and they feel they're comfortable that the employer or the business is doing what they can to keep them safe. So we went down the line of, yes, a mobile phone is important and useful, but we can't have people walking around with a mobile phone in their hand and seeing if there's a blip coming up or searching on things if they're working on sites. It's just going directly against safety and what we're trying to do. And that's when the team came up with the idea of using a band and or a tag, which is a low energy Bluetooth device. And between using the phone and this device and the way that we're modeling the technology allows us to measure these distances. So we really just focused on this. So if we just quickly move on to the next slide, we'll just get into a little bit more detail here. So the key features that we wanted to approach is we want to alert people before they breach. So someone's walking up towards somebody in the workplace, we don't want them to breach. We want their armband to tone or to vibrate, and for them to go, okay, I've got to stop. I'm getting too close. We want to trace that contact. We want to know if it has breached and who it's breached with, and we'll go on to that a little bit more in a minute. You see there, we need comprehensive reports. So the people themselves in the workplace and the employer need to be able to do these reports and see this information. So if something happens and somebody becomes ill or test positive, we can actually trace back and know who that person came in contact with in that workplace over that period of time. And we're truly hoping this will help. It's a help, it's a tool that will help us then perhaps not have to stand down the whole construction site, and we'll be able to manage and monitor what we do better and not putting everybody out and not stopping our projects completely. And honestly, I feel for Qantas when what happened in South Australia and they have, positive tests and suddenly there's 700 people that have to be stood down. And I just feel with this type of technology, perhaps they could look into that further than rather than the whole 700, if it was 100, if it was 30, even if it was 200 or 300 people that only had to be isolated, it would give us a far better opportunity to continue to work and to keep our workforce in place. So it's about creating and promoting a really healthy and safe work environment and allowing the companies, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's a distribution warehouse, whether it's in an office, it doesn't matter where it is, but allowing those people, those managers and those companies to manage what's happening and make sure that they've got the best possible procedures in place. So moving forward again, we'll have a look here, and this is just a diagram to show you, how the app sort of works. So the phone is definitely what we're using in combining with the band to work out distances and making sure that we've got a way to find out the location of where those clashes have. Again, very, very simple. Sure, there's some quite tricky technology and things behind this, and we have a phenomenal team of people in a company that we own that develops all around sensors and managing sensors and putting things together like this to allow us to do this type of technology. So just moving on again, you see the types of industries that we're facing. it's not just construction, it's everything in AEC, and it's not just out in the field, it's our own offices. It's our own people. If we need people working in an office can use this technology. It's manufacturing, it's warehousing, it's retail stores, it's just any commercial business, whether you're a legal firm, an engineering firm, no matter what it is, it's highly applicable. Then we get into our public works. We've got our councils, our transport people, our police, our ambulance guys, our fire protection, hospitals, nurses, doctors, all these things. This can be very, very applicable across everything. But again, it's a tool. It doesn't solve everything, but it's a tool to allow us to manage and try to work things out. Again, just look at some of these cases with the homes or hospitals where we've had to shut complete hospitals. The amount of cost and the effect that has on people, on having to move people who are ill and go through this stress. If something could just help us reduce that and manage that a little bit better, has got to be a great thing. But we've launched into the UK, and we're talking out there, and a large amount of their fruit comes out of France. And they've got major concerns in France of how they're going to be able to handle distancing and managing this in fruit picking. So something very, very simple, but we've worked out a way that we can actually use this with fruit pickers. We can actually use this and work with putting a tag on bins that fruit picker is actually packing into, or that group's packing into. We're working out ways that we can actually keep people safe in what they're doing in gathering and working with our food sources, but then keeping our food sources safe and being able to monitor that and be able to take all this to our market and keep things working smoothly. So there's so many applications to what we can do here. And then if we just again move forward, just want to cover a bit of an area here. So you'll just see I've put up on the screen a non-binding letter of intent. So we've been working incredibly hard, and we've got test units and everything's going beautifully smoothly. And what we're trying to do is we're now working with the manufacturers, and we're trying to work out how we go about producing the number of bands that we're going to need. So what we've done, particularly in Australia, we've reached out to a lot of our existing clients, and quite a few of our clients have already engaged in this letter of intent. And you see it's non-binding, but what it's allowing us to do is to understand the number of bands that we need to produce, the type of time frame we need to produce those bands, and that's purely to enable us to set up the production lines and how many production lines we need to set up for producing these bands. And you can see up there on some of the pricing, we're working on a low price per person per day, which covers all the data and the information being stored in the cloud, the reporting, the bands, everything. That's an all-up subscription price that can be managed as software as a service. So I wanted to cover why we're going at that direction and how we're handling that. And we're very, very excited that the manufacturing lines are all coming online, and we're going to be able to set this up. And the other thing we've said to people is, if you enter into these non-binding letters, that also we will use that to slot your spot into the production line. So then that if you're giving this commitment and helping us, so we know the numbers, it's going to make sure that you're supplied at the appropriate time and at the front of the queue, I guess. So then just moving on from there, this all fits in a part of what we call our M2 world, and iTWO Safe is a module that will fit within what we do with our M2. But I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to people out there that in these times when we become disconnected, we have people working from home, we have people having to try to work in all sorts of different places but keep productive. You can have connection, which can be through email and video conferencing, all these things we're doing here now. But what M2 is all about is an ERP system that sits across your business and allows you to manage all your processes and tie everything together, and having everybody work together on the projects whether it's scheduling and controlling what's happening on site, whether it's cameras on site, ordering materials, the costings, the whole works. This M2 is a fantastic ERP system built for the AEC marketplace specifically, and specifically down that construction line. And I'd like you to take a chance. We're not going to spend any more time on this today, but I really want you to have a think about, if you're running a business in this field, this is the appropriate time to move your business to the cloud, but move it to a system in the cloud that can manage all your processes and still connect through to your financial systems, etc. And we've done a hell of a lot of work, and we've been able to release what we call M2 48, go live in 48 hours. And what we've been able to do with this is take quite a complex ERP system that covers a lot. We've been able to build in data and processes and workflows. So within 48 hours, we can actually have this system up and installed in your business and beginning to train and implement and getting productivity out of it. So I'd like to introduce you to this M2 world, because iTWO, M2, it's all working together, and iTWO Safe works through the M2 cloud environment and allows us to have this connectivity across the board. So just move on to, which I think is the very close, or the last slide, but there's a few things I want to just address here. I've had quite a few questions. I'm going to go through some of those questions before I ask Billy if there's been any other questions posted up, because you can post up some questions there on the messaging if you like. But a few common questions are, if we've got so many of these bands and we're working on a site, but then that project finishes and we go to another site, can we move those bands and move on to the other site? Absolutely, of course you can. And can you use them on different people? Yes, you can. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking to the appropriate health people in Australia, and we're going to be deciding with those bands what's the absolute best way for disinfecting, time, all those elements. So of course we're not going to add to the problem, but those bands will be able to use through different people. The other thing a question that's been asked is, what about personal information? Are we capturing personal information and doing this? No, we're not. So the information sits between the employer and the employee. And I would like to think that probably in 99.9% of cases, all employers would have a phone number, a mobile phone number of the employee. And that's really the only two bits of information that they work together, which combines it through to the band, so we know who's who and who's working where and where that clash happens. So we're not taking any personal information. We're not asking people, have they been tested, are they sick, or any of those things. We're letting the normal business procedures and HR and the state policies manage all that. We're just focusing on what's happening in the workplace. So again, the other question is, we're seeing a lot of these social apps. Why is that different to us? Well, again, as I just covered before, we're not collecting who is or isn't, and we're not asking people to put that in. So there's no discrepancy in the accuracy of the data, and there's no way someone can go in there and say I'm not, and they are, or they are and they're not, because we're just staying away from that. What we want to do is manage that social distance. And the important factor of this social distancing and what happens in the workplace, if we look at these clash detections, or we look at where we're getting a breach, if that's a one-off breach and then you go and have a look at where that breach occurred and you say, okay, it's just happened because for whatever reason, two people have just walked too close to each other, we can implement some training or whatever for that group of people and manage that. However, if you're looking at that and there was continual breaches, and you go and have a look at that work area, and it could be a manufacturing floor, for instance, and you suddenly go, well, this is happening because we've got people working at a workbench here, then our traffic of getting people past them is walking too close. So then we can say, okay, can we change that path where people are walking? And you make a design, maybe a flow decision of what you're doing with your people to manage that. So you can be proactive then in putting these things in place. Another example is you're seeing a clash, straight away constantly, and you suddenly realise for the job that someone's doing, that you've got two people or multiple people that have to work close to each other for this period of time for that task. So straight away you sit there and go, okay, we need to provide them the appropriate PPE gear for doing that job. Again, you're providing them absolute safety, and you're managing what's happening. You can also adapt the system and do simple things. If you want people to sanitise before going to lunch and coming back from lunch, etc., you can set up a station where you have your sanitisers. You can put a tag there, and you can have a look that everybody is breaching that tag as they're going to lunch. And you can have it set up in a way as people are walking past, their band vibrates and they go, oh yes, that's right, I've got to do this. And because we're trying to train people and change their habits, and everybody wants to do the right thing, but it's just difficult to always know what that distance is. And in fact, I was in a situation the other day and I was talking to somebody, and my wife said to me, you know, you're a lot closer than 2 meters or 1.5 meters. And our natural behaviour isn't to stand 1.5 to 2 meters apart from each other. So this band, in fact, just gives people a chance to remind them and to start to set those habits and make sure that we're keeping this all together. So I just want to check now and see whether we have any questions that have popped up there. I can't see anything from this end.
Yeah, no, I can't see any other questions, Paul.
Yes, so if anybody has got some questions, they can type those into the Q&A. Sorry, Billy, what did you say?
So just saying, no questions from my end either.
Okay. No, that's fantastic. So to summarise, so I don't want to keep people any longer than they have to. This really is brilliant technology. It's safe technology. It's there to enable people to continue to work. We need people in our workplaces. We need projects to keep going. We need work to keep going. It's just critical. That's what's going to keep the economy going. But we don't want to do that at the risk of anybody. And we want to minimise those risks as much as we can. And that's the thought behind all of this technology. And it's just critical that we try to keep our world working and moving. And in fact, this technology is being released in the US, Europe, UK, all as we speak now. So it's moving along tremendously. And you know, I was doing some thinking last night because we hear on the news that, you know, we're going into a recession, or we're in a recession, then we go into a depression, and you know, I think, to me, I spent quite a few hours thinking about it, and I've never been through a depression. I'm still too young to have been through those things, but I think a depression is when people give up hope, and it's when people say it's tough and they can't see how to get out of these situations. And even though we're facing a very, very tough situation across the globe, I think the world's population is incredibly resilient these days, and I don't think we're giving up hope. And I don't think we're giving up doing things to make things better. Technology, what we do, there's people out there thinking of ways to solve these problems and make these things happen. And I'm so proud to be here in Australia, have a team come up with ideas, sitting in a local hospital here in Ipswich, and living out a township of Esk in Queensland, to be able to put this information together and make something and make a difference to our world, our economy, and all our people's safety. And I think it's a tremendous achievement from everybody. It's just very, very proud time. So,
Paul, we have had a question come through actually.
Yes, I've just seen that. So the question is, and thank you, Kurt. We had some discussions yesterday as well. Working with the unions and understanding how they see these things, and we've seen a bit of the noise on TV around the social information and the tracking. We've got quite a few groups that are talking and working with the union. Some of my people are plugging in and helping with that as well, and I'm sure they will engage more in the coming seven to 10 days. But one of the main things is the system can be set up to satisfy what they want. So if the unions want every staff member to be able to see on a dashboard in the lunchrooms or whatever it might be of what clashes or breaches have happened that day, that can happen. If you know, we can set the system up to on the reporting side to suit that. We're not taking any personal information. We're not measuring how much work people are doing. We're not measuring any of that. We're keeping it very, very simple, because the only thing in our mind is keeping people safe. Keeping people safe. And I really hope we can continue our discussions, but I think that we will get a lot of positive response and people supporting what we need to do throughout the unions. And we're very, very open to work with them to make sure we accomplish what they want, because it's about making people safe and making people happy. So I think at that point, I just want to thank again everybody, the government officials, government bodies that are online, our media, our customers, our new people who we've just met, anyway, our staff members and team and other people from around the world. I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for taking this seriously, and please engage with us and talk to us, and let's make a difference, and let's make a difference quickly so we can keep our people working. Thank you, and have a good and very safe end of day.